Gorochu, a Pokemon we never got, but how overpowered could it be in Generation 1? Today we'll dive into its origins, my choices for its type, stats, moves, and we'll see if it can dominate Pokemon Red in a solo run. Now I hear you barking, big dog. Why not jump straight into the gameplay? Why are we looking at the screen? Well, the answer's simple. Gorochu is not a real Pokemon, so there's just like some groundwork to cover, so let's just hit the high points. Gorochu's only official mention came in a 2018 interview where Ken Sugimori reveals that it was a scrapped Raichu evolution and it was cut due to balance issues. Its design was said to include fangs, horns, pretty much all we got. Now fast forward to 2020, the source code for Pokemon Blue was leaked and a back sprite surface that kind of fit the description, and beyond that, everything else is all imagination. The internet, as usual, delivered, and you've probably seen the standard interpretation, but there's also pretty cool stuff like the Rockstar version, and my personal favorite is like this beefy bruiser holding its tail like a weapon. I love this design. Now for the typing. Mono electric, I think it's too boring. Electric fire, there's a lot of popular ROM hacks that do this, but I don't agree. I think fire in Gen 1, let's not do that. Electric fighting, it fits it really well, but Palmont in Generation 9 already fills that role, looks a lot like the Pikachu line anyway, so let's go in a different direction. Instead, I took inspiration from Alolan Raichu's electric psychic typing. And when you combine that with the fangs and the horns, I think Electric Dark felt like the perfect antithesis to Alolan Raichu, and that's the direction that I chose. I think that's enough setup. I'll cover the moves and the stats as the video progresses, but I think let's just get to those juicy details of the run first. And I know you guys can already see the information on the overlay. I'll dive into the how and the why as we progress, but for now, just get ready for a banger. The early game doesn't really have much going on, but let me quickly address why the rival's using the Blastoise team. Now typically, I pick the hardest team for solo runs, but with Gorochu it really doesn't matter. Even if you went against the Bulbasaur line, you'd be eating Venusaurs for lunch, and I think picking the leftmost Pokeball here, it's just faster. That's really the name of the game, guys. Overall, the early game is really straightforward. I only have to fight the mandatory bug catcher, and it's just going to take a couple of thunder punches to take it down. Now with that said, I'm going to admit that this annoying little kid poisoned me a few times during testing, and let me tell you guys, if that happens, you might as well reset the whole run. But with that little bit of RNG behind us, let's take a look at Brock. We haven't officially talked about the moves yet, but let's be real, Thunder Punch just isn't going to be cutting it today against the rock solid Pokemon trainer. Thankfully, Gorochu has Nasty Plot. It's a reskinned Amnesia, and it's going to boost our special stat. Now, the play here is simple. Set up 3 times, get +6 special, and then sweep with Brutal Swing. Now, Gorochu does, notice this here, Gorochu takes a bit of a beating, but the payoff at the end is worth it. At the end of the day, this is a really solid Brock split, and with that out of the way, let's circle back to the moves. Now to start, let me clarify, this video isn't about recreating a Generation 1 Gorochu that would fit in well with Generation 1. The purpose of this How Overpowered series is to take future Pokemon, complete with the modern moves, types, mechanics, and see if they can compete with Mewtwo's time in a Gen 1 solo run. Now spoiler alert, after like 30 runs, only one single Pokemon has beaten the Mewtwo Bar, and that's Mewtwo itself from the future Mega Evolve, so go figure. Now I know what some of you are thinking, doesn't this make the game too easy? All this modern stuff, aren't the Pokemon too strong? The answer is no, because they almost never come close to beating Mewtwo. Half of them barely outperform Dugong. I'm not knocking Dugong, but Dugong is the second place vanilla Pokemon currently, but you get what I'm saying. And if you're looking for like intentionally bad or intentionally nerfed Pokemon in Gen 1, there are other videos out there for you to watch, but that's not what this series is about. I designed Gorochu to fit the power scale of this series, and let's talk about how I did it. Now first, I started out by looking at Raichu's modern Learnset, but I ran into a problem. As a stone evolution, Raichu just doesn't get level up moves, and I'm gonna assume that Gorochu is not gonna be a stone evolution, so I treated it like Pikachu. Thunder Punch is gonna stay because it's Raichu's evolution move, but I also added some of Pikachu's level 1 tutor moves just to get that little bit of flavor. Nasty Plot, for example, it felt perfect thematically for Gorochu as a horned devil with the dark typing. From there, I tweaked the level up Learnset to add some dark type moves, create more of like a personal identity for Gorochu. This is where Brutal Swing comes in. It's like a middle of the pack dark move, but when you pair it with Thunder Punch and Nasty Plot, that's what we're starting off, and that kind of emphasizes that little bruiser theme I'm going for. Then I made something special. Tail Flail is Gorochu's signature move. I made it up. It's inspired by the idea of like wielding its tail like a medieval flail infused with some dark energy. I kind of balanced it alongside moves like Flamethrower, Thunderbolt, Surf, 95 base power, 100% accuracy, but there's no additional effects for this move. For TMs, I think Surf is a staple of modern Pikachu. I'll talk about that a little bit later. And Earthquake is like a common progression going into the final Pokemon stage. Think about things like War Turtle or Charmeleon. They learn Dig, and then when they evolve, they get access to Earthquake, Blastoise, Charizard. That's just an example. In Mount Moon, we're sticking to the minimal path. I even bought an escape rope earlier just so I can skip the rare candy, just saving a little bit of time for Bill's house later. And as you can see on the overlay, I have not healed. I'm still a little bit beaten up, but one Nasty Plot into Brutal Swing can handle this final super nerd here. I'm healthy enough to survive a hit or two. There's no time lost, and with that, we can go straight into Misty. Anyways, I started punching. Thunder Punch gets the job done as you might expect, and with just a single Nasty Plot, even Starmie is within a one-shot range, and just like that, Gorochu punches its way through Misty and we can move on. Heading into rival number 2, you would think that I would fry the Pidgeotto with Thunder Punch. But look again, we're outsped, and that means Sand Attack. And of course, Murphy's Law strikes. I get sand in my eyes. I do miss a few moves here. I lost some turns. Not great, but at the end of the day, really not that terrible. Now that said, I did take a decent chunk of damage. That's kind of been a theme already early, and I'll touch how that plays into the run as we move forward. Now first off, Nugget Bridge, stop me if you heard this one before. Nugget Bridge and the path to Bill's house contains the single highest cluster of mandatory battles in the entire game. And even if we're a little bit beat up, Gorochu handles it with ease. That early damage from Brock did force some on-the-fly decisions. Normally I was just going straight from Brock to Misty without healing, and then I would heal after that, but I had to heal before Misty. This pretty much left me starting rival number 2 with a chunk of health already missing. The Sand Attack didn't really help us at all, but when you're chasing the Mewtwo Bar, you have to take risk. And I think the big question for me is if it'll pay off for Gorochu. Now let's talk stats. Raichu in Gen 1, it's really fast, it hits hard, but it's a little bit physically frail. I think most Stage 2 Pokemon have around 420, 425 base stats. So I went with that, and I also wanted to lean into Gorochu's Bruiser ability. Now to achieve this, I slashed the overall speed by 35%, and I reallocated those points into special and attack, added a little bit to HP and defense. The idea was to keep Gorochu as an offensive bruiser, kind of like think about Vegeta and Trunks in the Cell Saga when they're using that like fake Super Saiyan 2 form. They sacrifice speed for power. It felt like the perfect trade-off, and I was really happy with the final result here. And I would just like to say real quick, if you're enjoying this, help me out by subscribing. I'm aiming for 20,000 subs. Every bit of support means a lot. And also, how would you guys design Gorochu? How would you do its stats, its moves, or the type? Let me know in the comments. I'm interested to know. And if you would like to try this run for yourself, I do offer the patch file to channel members and Patreons. Link is in the description. I do have to mention the Dig Rocket Grunt. I haven't brought it up in a while, but to me this is like a top 2 or 3 potential time waster in most runs, and I get some insanely bad luck followed up by some good luck. I take out the Machop, and Brutal Swing is an easy one-shot on the Drowsy, but I Gen 1 miss. It's a classic 1 out of 256 chance, and then I get hit with the inaccurate Hypnosis. Now I do wake up very fast, so it's not a huge deal, but believe me when I say, I would have instantly stopped recording this run if I had stayed asleep like 7 turns, because this was some pretty bad luck, but thankfully we escaped. From there it's straight to the SSN, but I'm not really sticking around. I skipped the potions at the Mart Buy, I'm not picking up Body Slam, no rare candy, no training, and rival number 3, hey, it's a clean series of one-shots as you would expect, and with that out of the way, let's head to Surge. I think this battle is essentially free, but the Voltorb does outspeed you, and I have to set up once. So that means if you're around like 40 health here, there is a chance the Voltorb could land 2 Sonic Booms and leave you hurting, or even worse. Now with that said, I think in almost every alternate reality here, this fight has only one outcome. You're going to walk away with the 3rd badge. After Surge, it is time to pick up Thunderbolt. Huge upgrade, and now we can take our first look at the split data for the run. Gorochu has been fantastic so far. Despite the slower Brock split, it's now ahead by just over a minute. Now keep in mind the Misty split does look weird because Mewtwo waits until after Nugget Bridge, but it's a strong start overall, but there's still plenty of run left to go. Now we're going to get to a run-defining section for Gorochu, and the culprit isn't really what you would expect. It's Oddish. The pre-Rock Tunnel segment through the end features 4 Oddishes. 2 of them are leading the battles. Now for the Rapping Junior Trainer, you cannot one-shot, and you have to set up with Nasty Plot and use a Brutal Swing, which risks status conditions. Poison is manageable, that's what we see here, but Paralysis would force you to burn a precious full restore pretty early. Now to save time here, I get poisoned, and I'm going to stay poisoned instead of healing at the Poke Center. Now entering the next battle poisoned does prevent Paralysis altogether, but it's a pretty risky strategy. You can see here, just look at this, I'm level 13, but I can barely survive a move from the Oddish. I can survive a Poison Tick, and that keeps us right on schedule. Now the final Oddish here, thankfully, is not on the lead, so I can just set up safely on the Meowth and finish this little nightmare segment. Now seriously, if you guys had Oddish on this run's biggest headache list on your bingo card, pat yourself on the back because you're a genius. This part was bad, I hated this part. Once we reach Celadon, it's time to knock off a few quick errands. The shop buy is short, sweet, no top floor TMs, no vitamins for the run, and from there I'm going to blitz straight through the Rocket Hideout at lightning speed. With dark moves in Gorochu's arsenal, even the ground types can't slow us down, and it makes this section and Giovanni a breeze. Now we're moving on to Erika, and this isn't a hard battle, but it's like another Oddish type situation. I need to set up one time to sweep the team, and Victory Bell has one shot, one opportunity to hit us with Sleep Powder, which could pretty much ruin the run. Now unfortunately, I dodged the disaster, I only get poisoned, and from there Gorochu does what it does best. I sweep through the rest of the team, and we get another badge. As expected, rival number 4, barely a speed bump, and with its tail in its hand, Gorochu's dark typing annihilates the Ghastlies, and we're cruising along without a hitch. Down in the Safari Zone, I finally want to talk about Surf. Now my goal with Gorochu was to make it as believable as possible within this series. It's a slower, offensively weighted bruiser, and I didn't want it to push into absurd territory like 180 special or like 130 speed, and I debated leaving off Surf. I was thinking that Gorochu's bulkier, weaponized tail might not fit the move like Pikachu or Raichu's more nimble forms, but I think surfing Pikachu is iconic. Alolan Raichu literally surfs on its tail, and ultimately kind of sticking with the established Learnset just made more sense. Hopping into Koga, you guys already know the drill. +4 is the magic number to sweep, and I initially was trying +2, but I didn't have the best wheezing ranges, and the threat of a self-destruct made it way too risky. In the final strategy, coughing using something like Smokescreen or poisoning you early can make things annoying, but I think everything went pretty smoothly overall here. Now let's dip into Silph, and Gorochu is on a mission. At this point, we have less than 35 minutes of in-game time to finish the run, so I'm going to be cutting out the 10th floor, waving goodbye to Earthquake, and we're going to beeline it straight to rival number 5. And this fight serves as a barometer for Gorochu's power level. Despite relying on Nasty Plot kind of a lot already throughout the run, I don't even need it here. Our coverage is top notch. We have a super effective answer for every single Pokemon on the team. And let's not forget, Dark types, they're immune to Psychic, and it's going to reduce the normally terrifying Alakazam to a useless waste of space. Now it's always satisfying to me when this happens. I love it when Alakazam is a non-factor, but Gorochu absolutely crushes this battle, and we're moving on with a lot of confidence. And speaking of waste of space, next up is Sabrina. I do actually set up here to ensure that I can one-shot everything, maybe avoid annoying status conditions from Venomoth or something like that. But let's be real guys, this is the Psychic Gym, Gorochu's a Dark type, 2 + 2 is 4, Sabrina never stood a chance. Now we're taking a brisk swim down to Cinnabar. Gorochu is a little heavy, he's sinking in the water just a little bit, but we make the trip just fine. And since Gorochu doesn't really exist, he has no clue whether or not TM28 is actually Tombstoner, brother, or not, but let's dive into Blaine. Yes, I have Surf, and while it makes battles like this a little bit easier, the real value is the extra power points. Without it, the run would not really change much, just a few extra setups sprinkled in. But with Surf, you already know I'm just tossing water all over Blaine's fire types, and just like that, we got 7 badges in my bag. Heading straight into Giovanni, I'm setting up here for one reason. I don't want to give the Sausage Trio a chance to use Dig. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like Doug Trio is like a crit machine, and with how Goro's been handling hits, the last thing I want to see is a critical hit, super effective Dig hit me. Plus, if it goes underground, you start to waste turns. It gets messy. So I set up, and I go straight Surf for the second major battle in a row. I keep things clean. Now we can dive into rival number 6. +2, that's the magical number. I know what you're thinking. You don't even have to say it. I already did. +2. Pidgeot doesn't have Sand Attack at this stage in the game, so setting up is really easy. And honestly, I love using Tail Flail. I think the mental image of Gorochu like swinging its tail around like a medieval weapon, it just tickles that little part of my Pokemon brain, even if it's like a basic move with no extra effects. Now this battle, it's over. It's really fast like the others, but let's take a step back, slow it down, and cover a few more key points. First things first, this is the rare candy point. I skipped the Warden's Candy and Fuchsia earlier, I didn't mention that, but I got 6 total candies. I'm going to get Gorochu up to level 52, and this kind of marks the beginning of the end for the run. Now let's take a look at split data for the final time. And this one is coming down to the wire. Every little twist and turn throughout the run, it came down to this. Gorochu has this little bitty tiny 5-second lead over Mewtwo heading into the Elite Four, and the big question is, can we keep it up? Now I'm on record of saying that I did not think another Pokemon could ever pass the Mewtwo Bar after we redid that run, but maybe, just maybe, Gorochu existing outside of the realm of reality, it might give it a shot at passing the Mewtwo Bar, but I think there's only one way to find out. So let's fade to black and let's see how it goes. I think it's pretty easy to see how Lorelei's battle is going to go. No matter what Dugong does, I'm just going to set up once and that's the end of it. Gorochu's going to one-shot everything, and it's going to make this an incredibly quick and easy start to the Elite Four. Surprisingly, there's probably more to talk about with Bruno than Lorelei. Gorochu is a dark type, weak to fighting, and we've seen that our defenses aren't great, and something like Machamp Submission could really sting. I simplify things here, I set up twice, and I'm going to go straight Surf. This lets me spam a single move, save power points, and this right here is going to let me pretty much avoid using elixirs throughout the entire Elite Four. That's pretty much all there is to say about this one. Agatha is where things get a little bit awkward due to Gorochu's low speed. One setup is not enough to outspeed Gengar, but with 2 setups, that sweet badge boost glitch does kick in, and we're good to go, or so I thought. While this second setup does let me just tear through the rest of the team, I do level up at the end of the fight, which is going to reset my speed, and all the extra turns I spent setting up meant that by the time I get to the end here, I've taken some serious damage, and what this is going to do here, even though I win the fight, it's going to force me to go into my menu and use a full restore. It's not a massive time loss, but it's still worth noting. We'll come back to this in a minute, but let's go ahead to the next battle. Now we're on to Lance, and let's talk about pressure. When you're on pace for a top tier time, it's really easy to blank out, and that's exactly what happened here. I deviated from the plan, and it cost me, as we're about to see. Look at how much damage Gorochu takes from Aerodactyl after a single defense drop. It's almost comical. I've never seen a move do more damage than this, I don't think. But here's the real issue here. I'm at +2. With a single setup of Nasty Plot, Dragonite is pretty much a coin flip to survive, and after such a smooth run, the coin finally flipped tails. Dragonite's gonna live, fire off a Hyper Beam, and Gorochu is face down in the dirt for the first reset of the run. Now here's how it should have gone. Take out Gyarados immediately, then set up twice on Dragonair, and just sweep. It's as simple as that. Also, let me touch on the rules here. In vanilla runs, I allow up to 2 resets. They don't count against your final grade. Now for these cross-gen runs, I do allow 1 free reset, and it kind of accounts for like human error or like bad RNG without being overly punishing. So while Gorochu now has a reset on its record, it's not going to hurt the final evaluation if we keep things clean going into the champion fight. The champion fight is a clinic. All I need is +2, 1 setup. Doesn't really matter if the Alakazam outspeeds us. I just set up and I'm going to secure a pretty strong finish to the run. I would like you to take a look at my power points though. I have just enough Thunderbolts left for Pidgeot and Blastoise. Things were pretty tight here. I talked about it earlier, but that Bruno strategy meant that I used no elixirs throughout the entire Elite Four. And think about this, if I had gotten just a little bit luckier on Agatha, I might have avoided healing too, but those are just ifs and buts. The run is over, I can't change it now. It's time to see how Gorochu stacks up. Gorochu finishes the run with a final time of 1 hour, 45 minutes, and 53 seconds, just 4 seconds behind Mewtwo. This gives Gorochu a really impressive score on the tier card of 99.94, but after trying like 4 or 5 times, I just could not break the Mewtwo bar. And as we bring up the new tier list graphic, it's worth pointing out how historically bad electric types tend to be, especially in this series. Just look at the bottom here, Regieleki and Iron Thorns, not great. And if you keep that in mind, I think Gorochu's performance is nothing short of incredible, and it claims the first spot behind the Mewtwo bar, past Alola Ninetales, so I got nothing but praises for this Pokemon. And if you made it this far into the video, you're a real one. I appreciate it a lot. Also, special shout out to my channel members and Patreons. The support goes a long way. And if you want more cross-gen runs or just solo runs in general, check the description for playlists, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye.